What's going on, everybody? This is the state championship Wahoo versus Central City playoff preview and predictions segments. I'm excited for this one. It's been a long time up to this point, and we've seen both of these teams' journey so far. I guess we'll start off here with kind of the reactions from last week, as we usually do. I'll let you guys start.
I mean, Central City's defense just came out ready to play against Sydney, and kind of the storyline that people were saying about Central City coming into the playoffs is the high-powered offense, but will the defense be able to perform? And so far, we saw it against Lakeview, and we saw it then against Sydney too. The defense has really stepped up their level of play and is playing clearly their best football of the year. Truman Ryan had 3 interceptions against Sydney. The defense as a whole forced 6 turnovers. Just an incredible performance by that Central City defense against Sydney to get them to where they are right now.
Yeah, definitely. That was my biggest takeaway from the Central City game was that defense was electric. So many times that they were backed up. It looked like Sydney was going to score, and then they would come up with big plays. Connor Erickson was flying around, making some big tackles late in the game. But so many guys on that defense just really stood up. Isaiah Harville, he's got burned a few times this season, and he comes up with a big interception and really just a great moment for him as a senior. And, so many of those guys just really came out and played their tails off. And, on the flip side of it, I think Wahoo really kind of went the way that I thought it would. I thought that they would be the better team by a good margin. They came out, did what they needed to do, and proved that. And now both teams back to the drawing board and getting ready for the big one.
Yeah, you guys covered pretty much everything. Central City wise, I'll touch up on a little bit of Wahoo. Yeah, you said that they uh, uh, went with expectations as everyone thought they were going to do, and they've looked great through these playoffs. You kind of missed to see a little bit of closer games with these guys in the playoffs, but up to this point, they have just been a very dominant unit on both sides of the football. So I'm excited to see this game because both of these teams are playing some of the best football they have been all year. And then, yeah, so we'll just go ahead and we'll get into the previews part. We're going to format this a little different this time. We're going to start off talking about the Wahoo offense versus the Central City defense. I'll start on this one. Actually, no, you guys can start on this one. I have a little more scheme type of stuff again. So, what do you guys have for this?
Yeah, Wahoo offensively, the kind of the key thing on them, they like to do a ton of pre-snap motion and shifts that just really they're just trying to get the defense out of position. So I think the key for Central City is just don't try to adjust too much to the motions. Don't try to get uh going too crazy because if you're out of position when the ball is snapped, that's what Wahoo wants, and then that's when they can gash you up the middle. Most of the time when they're motioning a receiver, it's just pure smoke and mirrors. The shifts you have to worry about a little bit more. But if you know what you're going to do ahead of time, and that's where I think the extra days to prepare will help for both teams, but for the Central City defense especially, just knowing when they shift to different formations, just making simple, quick adjustments that'll help a lot. And then really you just got to know where Kit Brigham is at all times. They want to throw to him when they do throw the ball, and obviously they're going to run the ball with him a ton. Uh, so just limiting the big plays by Kit Brigham is huge. He's has a lot of just big, long, explosive runs this year. So the more they can limit that, the better. If they can get them into a position where they have to throw the ball, they haven't done that a lot this year. And when they do, it's just screen game to Brigham usually. So if they can make Wahoo throw the ball a little bit, that'll be very much their advantage. But really, it's just going to be limiting the big explosive plays from Brigham.
Yeah, definitely. When I was watching some Wahoo film actually last night, laying in bed, and I, just couldn't escape football on a Friday night. It felt weird not watching a game, so I had to pull up something. And, watching them, I think in many ways, you can tell that both teams are very well coached, and, they're both going to use motion on that offensive side, both do it really well, both throw some wrinkles at you that maybe you haven't seen before. And it's going to be a really exciting game on the offensive side of it. And I think, Central City's defense, they are definitely going to have to adjust, stay disciplined. And for Wahoo, it's just establishing that run game. Do what they are best at, with two great backs, a quarterback who can run it if he needs to, and just get those blocks at the line of scrimmage and then get to that next level and get that block. And Central City, I think that's the key. I'm looking at guys like, Damian Malachias and, Connor Erickson. I think they're going to need guys to step up and make those tackles quick because I think if you let Wahoo get down the field on you, it's going to be hard for some of those Central City defenders to make those tackles. And Truman Ryan also on the edge last week. He had the interceptions, but his edge tackling was phenomenal and just really had a monster game. And he's going to have to be at that same level, force it inside, Erickson and crew at the linebacking core. I think that's the keys for Central City, in my opinion, is they're just going to have to get on them quick, not allow too many yards, because if you allow them to get into that secondary, it might be a bit of a long day trying to stop the rushing attack for Wahoo. And no knock on Central City secondary, guys like Jacob Brzee, very high on the team's tackle list, done a really good job. But if they're getting to him at that point, they're down the field a ways. So definitely going to have to make Wahoo a little bit uncomfortable, and I think that's what Central City has done well in their last two games is making teams do things that they don't necessarily want to do but just out of necessity to try to either come back or do something different because it's not working. And I think if they can force Wahoo into some passing situations, I think the turnovers, that's the biggest thing in my mind. Looking at these teams very evenly matched, I think the turnovers are going to be the key. And that old cliche, but it proved in Sydney that was the key for Central City, and I think it's going to be the key again for that Central City defense to look for turnovers. But Wahoo has not turned it over very many times this season, so Wahoo has to be Wahoo, and Central City has to make them not be Wahoo. That's my keys to the game on that matchup.
Yeah, I agree with you guys pretty much on everything. Yeah, Luke touched up on the shifts. That's kind of their identity as an offense. They're trying to overload one side and get a numbers advantage when they use that shifts, and they trust their guys to block on those plays, and they've been very successful up to this point. Uh, a lot of their running is running to the outside, and they kind of try to set up a play action shot plays. And Kip Brigham is also a threat as well in the air. But for the most part, Wahoo's offense isn't really complex. It's more of a do your job type of defensive approach that you have to do against this Wahoo team. But this is a matchup where I have the offense being at an advantage. But I did watch a lot of Central City defense. The biggest thing you touched up on it a little bit, Ryan, as their edge tackling. I really liked how their DBs defended the traditional run set to the outside. I like how they tackled. They didn't really allow really many yards at all. They had a little bit on a jet sweep on it with a receiver, but when you talk about traditional runs, which is what Wahoo does, they've been doing a nice job of keeping that inside and not getting too many yards on the outside. But for how they played against Sydney, they kind of stacked the box. They took some guys up. I think that they probably will run a similar defense from what I gather. I don't know for sure, but that's probably the approach I would think so. But yeah, they'll probably run a same type of defense. So I think they'll have a little bit of success. I don't think that it's going to be very easy stopping Kip Brigham. He has the best contact balance C1, I think. I don't think it's really a question, actually. This guy is really awesome. And I'm looking forward to this Central City defense. They're on another chance to show themselves again, which they have been the last 2 weeks. So yeah, that's going to conclude this Wahoo offense versus the Central City defense. So we'll move on to the Central City offense versus the Wahoo defense. Unless you guys have anything more to say on the last matchup. All right, we'll head on to the Central City offense. I'll let you guys start on this one again since you guys have been pretty tight with this offense so far this year.
Yeah, I think the passing, it's going to be a big game for the Central City passing attack. Wahoo has proved just really stifling against the run. They held Darian Whitaker, who's one of the best backs in C1, to just 25 yards rushing in that game. And then similar against Auburn, Nixon Ligori, who's just ran over everybody. I think he had like 20 yards rushing, 40 yards rushing, maybe. So they're just really stifling against the run. They've got some really good defensive linemen and linebackers with Iverson and Kruger and Scantlin, who's a really good defensive lineman. Uh, but they've shown a little bit more vulnerability in their secondary. Their safeties play back really far. They run a lot of man coverage, which if you have the guys, man coverage is really just mano y mano. So I think Central City trusts their receivers that they can beat Wahoo's DBs as good as they are, because Wahoo does have solid defensive backs, but I think Central City trusts their receivers to win those matchups. So I think this is going to be potentially a big game for Central City passing. If they can really attack the man coverage, maybe even get them out of man where they might be able to run the ball against the softer zone a little bit. But I think just attacking the middle of the field with the really deep safeties is going to be big. And then just winning in man to man. It's going to be a really big game for Parker Zickman. He'll probably have to play his best game of the year. And if he can do that, that's going to be what puts Central City in a position to win.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. That the guys that you mentioned for Wahoo, they're going to shut down that middle. It's going to be tough sledding for Corbin Kais to try to, run up the middle. I think even if you try some delayed stuff, it's going to be difficult. Wahoo, their defensive line, they've done really well at getting pressure on the quarterback late in the season, getting some sacks, some hurries. And I think that's going to be a big key for them. Central City's offensive line has been really solid. There's been many games where Parker Zickman has had a white jersey at the end of it and has not been on his back much at all this season. So that's going to be a big one. They're going to have to do that again against, probably one of the best defenses that they've faced this year, or the best defense they faced this year. And I think this one for Central City, I think it happens on the edges. I like their ability to block on the perimeter, set up some screens, get the ball moving. Looking at guys like Wyatt Dent, and he, you know, clearly has a lot of yards this season, has a lot of touchdowns, but he's also improved this season. I feel like at throwing some of those downfield blocks, allowing a guy like Turner Hankey to get open, and Turner himself going to be huge in that perimeter blocking. I think for Central City, if you look at the run or the pass, I think it has to be on the perimeter. They ran a play late in the Sydney game that I think maybe some foreshadowing of something that could work against Wahoo and getting some guys out, and so that's going to be exciting to see how that goes. But I think it's the perimeter, and then I like the out routes. Central City does a good job, especially when they need a first down, of getting the ball out quick, get it to um, out to Dent or out to Ryan, and just a simple out route, quick pass, get it out of Zickman's hands. And I think that's going to be the key, is making those quick throws. I don't necessarily like the long ball in this one. We'll see what the wind does in Memorial Stadium. I think that's going to dictate a little bit. Every time I've been in Memorial Stadium for a high school football championship, the wind kind of determines quite a bit. It can get swirling, and it seems like when you have the empty stadium, maybe it comes into play a little bit more. It always seems like the wind's blowing a little bit different for a high school football championship than when I'm there on a Husker game day. So, I'm interested to see what the wind looks like on Tuesday, and I think that could factor into it. But I definitely agree with everything Luke said, and I think passing is the key for Central City. I think that is the one weakness of this Wahoo defense, and I think it's going to come down to Parker Zickman. And again, going back to the turnovers, he's had 9 interceptions this year. Can he have a clean game? I think he can. And I think it could bode well for Central City in that regard.
Yeah, as you're talking, I actually went and checked the weather. The wind doesn't look too crazy. There's a little bit of gust though, but it shouldn't be a huge problem. But anyways, we'll head to my kind of what I have on this one. As far as Central City's offense goes, I think that their identity as a when you look at it broadly is that it's kind of similar to or Wahoo's, whereas they kind of well passing wise at least not running of course but they kind of use a lot of short yardage volume plays and then they kind of work off of that and then they get the deep shots going as you've seen with Turner Hankey they kind of ran those wide receiver screens and then they kind of set it up where Turner Hankey ran like a slot fade and he was just wide open and Parker Zickman hit him on the money. That was a really good throw. I remember watching that one. But speaking of that, I really like Central City's play design. They're a really fun offense to watch. They get different guys moving in space a lot of times, and I like how they kind of get their players involved. I like they get Turner Hankey involved with the those short shovel passes and stuff as well. Sometimes that's fun to see. I think that Central City, this is another offense. I think that Central City might have an advantage. They've just been a pretty good offense, and they've struggled relatively as of late, which is a little bit of a problem. I think that at this point, you kind of look at Central City, and they don't really have too much of a inside the tackles run game, and that's all right. It's you can't change it at this point. They do run a little bit of some delays, as you mentioned, Ryan, with Corbin Kais to kind of get the linebackers freezing up and let Corbin Kais use his explosiveness. But yeah, I think that they need to run the ball under center. That's kind of one of my big notes. I think that maybe they could set up a couple plays and maybe get some play action off of a bootleg or something. I watched the Boys Town game and they didn't really seem uh, too crazy with the safeties, as Luke mentioned. They didn't have them too far back. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm thinking of Auburn. I don't really remember. But one of the notes I
It
have.
kind of depends on the matchups.
Yeah,
But
that's one of the notes I had was that they adjust a lot. So that's an adjusting defense. So I don't expect to see extremely similar defense to what we have been seeing scheme wise and front wise. But I think that they have the personnel that is going to be familiar. So it doesn't really matter. Their personnel, let's talk about that. Their defensive line is very, very good. Um, but the last time they have played a diverse offense was that Ashland Greenwood game, and that was uh, one of their worst defensive games, I believe they've had. Well, definitely, probably, but I think that they struggled a little bit here, and I think that at this point, Central City has had all this run time to continue getting better at offense, and I think that at this point they're a better diverse team than Ashland Greenwood has. That holy smokes, that was bad. But anyway, uh, I'll cut that one out. But anyways, Central City I think is a little more advanced as a diverse offense as Ashland Greenwood, so I think that kind of plays into their cards a little bit. Um, yeah, I'm just kind of looking through my notes here. It's a little bit of a pause, just trying to make sure I cover everything I wrote down. But yeah, I think that when you look through the schedule, this Wahoo's defense has been really good all year, but their worst games came from passing offenses, which was that's Ashton Greenwood and Booker Shire, or not Booker Shireman, Aurora and Booker Shire. And Aurora had 24 points in that game. They passed the ball. Booker Shireman is a really good quarterback. Unfortunate that his team wasn't as good in past years. But anyways, Derek from Ashton Greenwood, he had 232 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, but he did throw 3 interceptions. I was at that game. It wasn't a that was his second start ever, so I don't put in too much stock in the interceptions part. I didn't really see any crazy Wahoo disguised coverages or anything, but I think that was just kind of mistake based. But anyways, I think that this is another matchup where the offense might have the advantage over the defense, and I'm really looking forward to this game. It might be a pretty good game that we have on our hands. And do you guys have anything else on this one?
yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Ashland game. That was really the closest game that they've played all year. It was 14-point loss, I think, for Ashland Greenwood. And you mentioned the 3 interceptions too. I think if Ashland takes care of the ball in that game, they might even win that one. So that's going to be another key for Central City is just taking care of the ball. I have it wrote down somewhere here. Um, Wahoo is plus 23 in turnover margin this year. So they just don't turn the ball over and then they generate a ton of turnovers. So the key to Central City, another one will be taking care of the ball. And that's why I said Parker Zickman is going to be huge in this game. He's got to take care of the ball and he's got to find his receivers when they're winning their matchups. I think Turner Hankey will be another key in this one because they run man coverage. If he gets matched up on a linebacker, I really like that matchup for Central City.
Yeah, really one thing that I would add, and just looking at Central City and one of the kind of unsung heroes of this season, Will Pullen. The kid came in and he's hit 2 field goals, 2 for 3. I think the other one may have been a block. I can't remember. But he's executed well on PATs, and I think in a game that could be close, I am looking at Will Poland as one of the keys for this game. He could make some plays that dictate it, and then also, in the kickoff game and return game, Wahoo has showed that they have the athleticism and ability to house one on a kick or a punt, and Central City has shown that same ability. So I think special teams is going to be another key component on this one, and it's going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be one of those all phases types of games, and whichever team comes out, takes care of the ball, wins all 3 phases of the game, or at least 2 out of 3. I think that could dictate your winner there.
Yeah, you touched up on special teams, and I think Wahoo is notoriously known as like as far as the last 2 years go that they have been just really good on special teams, especially last year, and that won them a couple games, especially against that Ashton Greenwood team last year. And then this year they have just been flawless. So it's not like a thing that they win games off of it. Uh, they certainly didn't against Ashton Greenwood. You saw a little bit of mistakes there. I forgot to touch up on there when they are in those closer games, but we'll see how that translates. As far as the Wahoo's defense goes, I'll talk about a few guys I like on their team. You got Jake Scanlon, you got Eli Emerson. Those two for the defensive line are very good. I think those guys really get after, especially Jake Scanlon. You're going to want to keep your quarterback really clean because he will find him. And you saw last year in the state championship, he got our quarterback down a couple of times. He hits hard and he has a really good motor. I kind of like how he plays. And yeah, so we'll kind of move on to our picks here. I'll let Ryan go and then Luke, and then I'll finish it off. Who do you guys got for the state champion this year?
Yeah, so coming into this playoff, I've been looking at Wahoo, expecting them to be in that state championship. And I know a few weeks ago, I said I wasn't ready to hand them the state championship trophy yet. I wanted to see what shook out. I wanted to see, who it would be playing them. But I felt pretty strong that they were the best team in C1 for a good majority of the year. And I felt like it was going to be really difficult for anybody to beat them. And I think that is still the case. However, Central City is the one team, in my opinion, that has that shot. And I'm going to take it back to Legion baseball season. And Central City had just lost their first game of the junior season. And still in contention to win a state championship, which they did ultimately. And I was walking to my car, walking behind Parker Zickman and Coulter Looters. And, some of the guys were upset, hanging their heads, didn't want to lose that one. They did. Those two guys, not a care in the world. They knew they were going to come back. They knew they were going to win the next day. They came out, they did it. There was a play during that tournament where Central City turned a triple play, got out of the inning when they needed to. And it seems like that has been a defining moment for this community in many ways. And, at the same time, the Legion baseball guys were doing their thing. We had guys going to Arkansas to go to a 7-on-7 camp. And, this Central City team is just different than anything that we've seen here in Central City in the past. And it shows being the first one to make it to Lincoln, play for a state championship. And these guys, they're just a different breed when it comes to their mindset, their thinking, and I will always have faith in Parker Zickman to get it done. I'll have faith in so many of these guys. So my pick, I think Central City wins a close one. I think the Bison bring home the state championship, and I think I'm probably going to lead the parade through town. I don't know, but it's going to be it's going to be an exciting one regardless. And there's no losers at this point. I know Wahoo, they would hate to lose this one. After the way their seasons have played out in recent years, Central City, probably the clear underdog. But I think the underdog comes out on top in this one.
Yeah, Central City definitely underdogs in this one. Not very many people outside of our town think that Central City has a chance in this game, but I'll tell you what, I love this team. I love all my teammates. The brotherhood we have on this team is just insane. I just love all these guys, and if they can play within themselves and know who they are, this team just they're really good and they know they're good. And if they can play with that confidence and not be intimidated by what everybody thinks of Wahoo and just tune out the outside noise, play within themselves, win their matchups, just beat the guy across from them, I think Central City can win this one. So I think Central City brings home their first football state championship in school history in a shocker.
Yeah, I've kept up. This is the first year where I've kept up completely with this class from the outside. And speaking from the outside, I think that Wahoo is overall just the overwhelming favorite right now. But when you go in and you keep up with these teams all year, and you go in and you watch a couple hours of film, which I have, you kind of see that this game is definitely going to be a competitive game. I don't think that Wahoo is going to blow out Central City or vice versa. I think that this is going to be a great game. I think that both these teams have their respective awesome players, and I'm really excited to see this game. But this is the one time this year that I'm going to have to pick against Central City. I hate to do it, but this Wahoo team, I talked to Jake Scanlon. Those guys seems ready to go, and man, I think that they're kind of carrying that last year a little bit, and I think they're going to be ready to go. They have a little bit of experience in this game. I'm going to pick Wahoo here, but it's definitely going to be an awesome game, and I really look forward to watching. And we have 7 minutes left. Did you guys do helmet stickers?
I have some guys, yeah.
Okay.
I,
We
I
can,
really didn't, but I could come up with something.
yeah.
I kind of forgot about that.
I'm just gonna end this one, and then I'll send you guys another link.
Sounds good.
Yeah. We'll move on to our one of our last segments here. We'll start with helmet stickers here. Just kind of giving some heads up to either some of these guys in the state championship game or some noticeable performances in the playoffs. We'll let Luke start on this one. Who do you got?
So let's see. I'm gonna start with Truman Ryan, 3 interceptions versus Sydney. He's gonna get my first helmet sticker. Just a really big performance. I think if he had one more pick, he would have had tied the state record for the playoffs. So you can ask Jacob Rold. He batted one out of his hands that he might have intercepted, but
Yeah, I kind of go on here. I kind of named my two helmet stickers I gave out. I gave the Travis Hunter helmet sticker, and I gave it to Truman Ryan. So that's two helmet stickers for that guy. He's contributed on both offense and defense, especially. He had a touchdown last game, and he also had those 3 interceptions. I think that contributed pretty big to both sides of the football. I think that's pretty awesome.
Definitely. I'm gonna piggyback off of that. So Truman's great. He's Truman. I love Truman, but for me, looking at the Central City game, I interviewed Truman already, so I'm not going to give him any more press. But two guys in the Central City game that I wanted to talk about both of them. I did one, and I kind of forgot the other in my whole spiel earlier. So I'm gonna make these guys split a helmet sticker. But Connor Erickson. I talked about him earlier. Just had a monster game. I think 12 tackles, four for a loss, something like that.
2 sacks, forced fumble.
Yep, forced fumble as well. And then the guy who recovered that fumble, Bryce Coons, he has been just an unbelievable leader for this team. Somebody who came in, started early, one of the most undersized offensive linemen throughout the course of his career, but he's never played that way. But on the defensive side of the ball, he's been such a huge asset for this team, laying his body on the line week after week, diving to make tackles, and somebody who has really showed that he can perform under pressure. His performances at the state wrestling championships have been a thing of legend. It runs in the family. His brothers both have been the same way, keeping things interesting. So both of those guys just a phenomenal game last week, and I'm just going to go ahead and name my other one quick. Another person who really stood out for me, and somebody that I watched, from the games that I've watched in the playoffs, Kean Kaiser at Sydney. That offer that he got from Iowa State, that is well deserved in my opinion. He showed that he has a lot of skill. Broke on a ball, made an interception, and he looked the part. So I think he has a solid future ahead of him.
That dude's a stud.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and I'll give my last helmet sticker. I'm just gonna give it to Kip Brigham because he has been just so good this year. Really came out of nowhere. He didn't have very much of anything last season, and he just, I guess he had a really good summer, really good off season, and it kind of exploded onto the scene. I'm excited how he plays in this game and as well as his next year he has because he's only a junior. He's a really great runner. He has really good hands too. I don't know if you guys saw one of his like they threw him a jump ball in the back of the end zone and he went up and got it, but he has just been such a good send for that Wahoo team. They have that awesome 1-2 punch. They kind of got the speed and the lightning and thunder type of 1-2 punch over there. So I think that it's really fun for Wahoo, and I think that he deserves some praise. He had obviously had a good summer. So yeah, do we have any more helmet stickers?
Yeah, I have one more. Um, I'm gonna give my last one to Quinn Bailey for his performance against Lincoln Christian. 331 yards on the ground and 5 touchdowns. I think this wouldn't be a very good segment if we didn't mention that performance. So I'll give that to Bailey. And then just want to shout out Malachi Davis also, who had 18 tackles versus Shadron. He's actually a cousin of one of the players in Central City, but he's a really good player. We played against him, and it's fun to watch him.
All right, well that we'll move on to our annual fantasy football team. This time we're not gonna pick a quarterback. So unless you guys want to, we can have the same player. We can double up. But anyways, we'll pick one wide receiver or one running back, one wide receiver, a tight end, and then a flex, which can be any position. So the the player pool here is pretty small, but I'm sure we all know these guys a lot better than some of the other weeks. But yeah, we'll just go ahead and get right into it. I'll give Luke the first pick, then Ryan, and then I'll finish it off as far as rounds go.
So it's 4 players total.
Yep.
Running back, receiver, tight end, flex.
Yeah, what were those again? Sorry, my connection was cutting out a little bit.
Running back, wide receiver, tight end, and a flex.
Perfect.
I think there's really good value in Wyatt Dent for this game. I think he's clearly the best receiver playing in this game, so I'm going to go ahead and snatch him up.
Then that will move to Ryan.
Perfect. Uh, well, then I better go ahead and pick Kip Brigham.
Yeah, I think there's a very clear top three in this game. That's Kip Brigham, Wyatt Dent, and then my pick, which is Corbin Kais. I think that he should get a lot of volume because he usually does. And then my wraparound pick, I'm going to take Noah Pravorsky from Wahoo, kind of finishing out their backfield. He's a really good runner. And then that's going to bring it back to Ryan.
I got to go with Turner Henke.
That's a really good pick. I think he's far and away the best tight end in this one too. And he's really just been turning it up the last few weeks. So he's really
Absolutely.
he's came.
Such deceptive speed. When he gets an opening, he can go, and he's a hurdler and he runs like it.
Yeah, not a knock or anything. I kind of watch him play and he kind of runs a little weird. I don't know, but he's really good.
Yep.
He runs a little weird though.
Yeah. I kind of thought Turner Hanke would fall here for a second. I got excited, but
I wasn't going to let you have him, Luke.
let's see. I'm gonna go to my flex spot, and I'm gonna take Truman Ryan of Central City. He's their number two receiver. He goes opposite of Wyatt Dent. I think if Wyatt's gonna draw their best corner the whole game, and that could potentially open up some favorable matchups for Truman Ryan, and maybe get a touchdown.
Yeah, and then you have the wraparound.
Right. Um, I mentioned that Wahoo plays a lot of man coverage, and that means that you will potentially have some linebackers matched up against tight ends, which is a good matchup if you like your tight ends. And for that reason, I'm going to take Coulter Looters, the other tight end for Central City, in case they want to match up their safety against Turner. If he gets matchups against linebackers, that could be something they could pick on with that big body target of the middle.
Does that round off your team?
No, I still need running back, so we'll come back to me for that.
Then we head to Ryan, and then I'll have a wraparound, and then that a wraparound pick will start the last round. This is where it kind of gets a little deep here. You kind of have
All
to
right. So,
a little deep,
oh,
so oh, you're good.
I'm going to go with Caden Kristen, a Wahoo.
Yeah, he's a good player. So, for my next pick, do not have a wide receiver. So, kind of what I'm thinking here, I'm going to take Bladen Cole from Central City. I think they might really air it out, especially if Wahoo is stopping that run. So, and then my wraparound pick, I'll take my tight end, my last pick, which will be Eli Shada of Wahoo. I think that he's a really tall guy. He can maybe give me a couple catches. He hasn't been too explosive on the stat sheet as far as tight end goes. He's a really good defender, though. He's got some length, and he's also a good shot putter. So that doesn't really play a part in this, but I feel like I should mention that one.
Got a little grudge against him. He got me 0 points last week, so I wasn't going to take him again.
All right. My last pick. I'm a bit of a creature of habit. I care more about keeping it consistent than I do necessarily winning. It's a bit of a flaw I have. So my final pick of the season, my ride or die, Luke Mchargue, Central
Ooh.
City.
Let's go.
If only high fives were a stat. That comes back to me with the running back, the last pick in this draft. There's not really any more running backs available that will get any volume. Brigham or with Brigham, Kais, and Bordovsky all gone, uh, really doesn't leave much. I'm gonna take Colby Schneider, who's a backup running back for Central City. So in case Kais need a spell, he might get a couple carries.
Yeah, and that's going to conclude our fantasy football segment. Just a little reminder, whoever either wins or gets second place, if I get first in this fantasy draft, we'll give you guys a free Danny made a graphic design or graphic t-shirt. So put a little bit in there. I'm kind of excited to see what the results are, fantasy and just the regular game, because obviously. But so make sure you guys stay tuned up to this point. After we conclude this part, we got player interviews from Parker Zickman and Jake Scanlon upcoming next. So stay tuned and see what how they're feeling heading up into the state championship game. And yeah, that's going to conclude our part here with the guest. Thank you guys for coming on once again. This is a really big week for both of you guys, and I'm excited to sit down and watch these games, whether it's on the field or from my dorm. So, uh, just a reminder of where we can find you guys. Just one final time here before we head off.
Yeah, I don't have my hat on today, but RN Sports on all of our social media. So Central City Republican Nonpareil, and so just check us out there for all things Merritt County, really. But you never know where we'll pop up. So we're gonna try to catch that Bennington game and do a little bit of coverage on that. Cam Linhart, shout out to him, Central City alumni. So should be a fun one.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Mchargue_Luke. And also, I work with the Pastime Sports Network. Probably won't do much basketball this year, but if you tune into Colonel's Baseball this spring, I'll be on some broadcasts there. So that's about it for me.
Yeah, just another thank you for you guys for coming on. It's been a pretty fun few weeks here, and yeah, so I'll see you guys next week. We'll see about these ones, but I'm excited to see the results of these games. And just one more time, thank you guys for coming on. It's been fun.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Jake from Wahoo. I'll kind of let him introduce himself a little bit here. What's going on?
Yeah, not much. Yeah, I'm Jake. I go to Wahoo and I play offensive defensive line.
All right, well, we'll hop into these interview questions. In Class C1, not only you and that whole Wahoo defense is known as one of the most physical and hard-hitting units in the class. How much pride do you and the team take in that?
Yeah, Coach Fox and Coach Iverson have kind of instilled in us that we need to try to go out and be the most physical team on the field. So I think with the coaches believing that, kind of translates down to all the players and the guys on the field, even the practice squad players.
Yeah, I think I might have a little bit of experience with Jake getting a little bit of hard-hitting hand from last year. He kind of got our quarterback a couple of times in the state championship. Uh, Speaking of last state championship, you guys played in one the year prior. Do you think that big game experience is an advantage in this game?
Yeah, for sure. Just getting the feel for the stadium, you know, being in such a big place, there's a lot of people there. Even stuff like the locker rooms, getting that stuff figured out, the pregame, all the cameras are on you. So I think it helps that we've been there before. And, last year I kind of think we were maybe like deer in headlights. We hadn't been there before. I know you guys were, you know, had made a run the past couple years deep into the playoffs. So you guys had something to prove with that. So yeah, I think we just got to go out and fight hard, even though it's, a bigger game than what it may seem.
Yeah, looking at that Central City offense in this prep week for the game, how does that offense compare to some of the other units you guys have faced this year?
I would say they're a little similar to DC West and even a little similar to us. We run a lot of motions and shifts, and they got a lot of dangerous guys on the field too. So we just got to kind of look out for that.
And that'll lead us into our last question. If you had to say one positive thing about Central City, what would that be?
Yeah, I would say they got a lot of good athletes. They got a really good quarterback. He can throw the ball all over the place. They got a good offensive and defensive line. They like to get off the ball. They got a big wing and tight end, wide receivers all over the place. They just got a lot of guys that can make plays all over the field.
All right, well, that kind of concludes everything. Thank you for hopping on. Didn't want to be too much of a distraction in this game, but I'm sure you guys are locked in for this week. Any closing feelings you have?
I don't know. I just think both Wahoo and Central City are going to go out. Both teams are going to give everything they got. It's going to be a battle.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on again, and looking forward to watching you again perform in a stadium like that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, everyone. This is a Central City player interview this time, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Parker Zickman. I play quarterback for the Central City Bison in Class C1.
All right, how are you feeling?
Feeling real good. It's been a fun ride and excited to get into this week.
Yes, sir. All right, so we're just going to head into the questions right here. So this was a huge year for you in Central City, a huge surprise for a lot of people. Working with this same group of guys throughout the off season and summer process, was this as big as a surprise as people think?
I mean, we all knew we had crazy potential. We had athletes, good O line. So going into the season, we knew it was going to be a successful season. Did we think we are going to go this far? I think a lot of us did have that plan. Then there's those kids that are like, I mean, that sounds cool, but are we going to do that? And then everyone just bought into it, and we had a great season so far.
Yeah, you guys faced one of the best defenses and offenses in the state this time around. Being a quarterback, how does Wahoo's defense compare to some of the other defensives you guys have played this year?
Yeah, they are a really solid defense. Kind of helps us though because we just got done playing Sydney and Lakeview, who are both really good defenses as well. And they mix in different fronts, different coverage, but I think we'll have our answers and we'll be ready to go.
Yeah, Central City, and you guys have an offense that is super diverse and dynamic, but as of late, we haven't seen the scoreboard light up like it has earlier this season. Is it important to get back to that same offensive explosion, or is a steady winning in the big moment offense good enough?
We go into every game just expecting to light up the scoreboard, and the last couple games, we've done enough to get it done. We've been playing some solid defenses, but I think our offense is ready to make a statement here in the championship game.
All right, that's fun to hear. In our last question here, if you had to say one thing positive about Wahoo, what would that be?
You know, they are a really good football team. We have a lot of respect for them, especially what they've done the last few years. And yeah, just I respect them. They're a good team, is what I'd say.
All right, well, appreciate you for coming on and good luck. I'm not sure what day you guys play, Monday or Tuesday. I'd have to see the schedule, but good luck in that game, and I'm excited to watch that one. Do you have
Thank
anything
you.
else to say?
What was that?
Do you have anything else that you want to get out?
Uh, no, just thank you for the interview and reaching out, I'd say. And all the edits you made this year, it's been really cool for everyone to see and things.
Appreciate that. Well, you have a good night, and I'll see you play on in Memorial Stadium here in the next week.
All right, thank you.